Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Let me just give it a moment. I was actually thinking about this over the last few days, and with this channel being about emotional maturity, I definitely want to talk about this life lesson because it can be applied to so many areas in one's life, honestly. So, I'm going to share with you guys today a situation that I experienced in my life. And it was a hard lesson to learn, but a very necessary one. And after that experience, I got the memo. Your girl got the memo. Because I felt like I got yelled at. But honestly, there were smaller situations prior where I was given opportunity to pick up on this lesson, but I had to learn it this way. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? I hope everybody is well. You woke up, you've been granted another day of life. Trust me, that is plenty to be well right off the rip, okay? And then we add some other things into the mix, you're doing very well, okay? But let's get into this. Let's just get into it. This may not be the longest of live streams, but I'm here and we'll see. We'll see. Um I have sprinkled like some of my life story here and there throughout these thousands of videos, over 1,000 videos uploaded here. So here's another glimpse of something I've gone through and overcame in my life. And this was probably about 7 years ago now. 7 years ago, baby. Um, I experienced being homeless. I did. And it was because I had overstayed my welcome in a particular situation. So let's get into that. Um, it was after I'd experienced a trauma in my life. My sister, I'm just going to just be a little open about that. One of my sisters was like, you know what? You went through this trauma and maybe you just need to get away from that area, just make a fresh start, turn over a new leaf in your life. Why don't you come down here? I was up north. My sister was down south. She's like, why don't you come down here and just, let's just start over. And it did sound like a good idea. I was like, you know what? Maybe I do need a fresh start because I'd been through something pretty traumatic at that time. And my sister and I had a very, very good rapport. Honestly, we had never even had an argument with one another. And I know that sounds weird because that's what siblings do. They argue, right? But the structure of our relationship had been a little bit different. We lost our mother at a young age, and me being 6 years older than her, our relationship more than like a sister relationship. It felt more like I was more motherly to her. So like when she had her kids, it felt like I was a mother and a grandmother. You know, I felt it was very matriarchic, if that makes sense. Like it just wasn't a traditional setup. Point blank. Period. All right. So I didn't have any reason to feel like this experience was going to go into the left field. But in hindsight, with the emotional maturity that I have now, I certainly would have gone about things in a different manner than I ended up doing it. You know. But yeah, she put that offer on the table, and I was like, I think that's a good idea. So I took some flights down there and I was actively looking for work, you know, and I was pregnant with twins. I was pregnant with the twins at the time. For those of you who are familiar with my story, I do have now 6-year-old twins, so they were in my belly at this time. All right, so I'm looking for work and I'm trying to like seal the deal on that before I start showing. So it was just a lot going on, but everything was working out actually pretty well. Um, I had hooked up with this company, and it seemed as though, I was going to get hired with them. So I'm like, okay, I'm laying these foundation, doors are opening. You know what? Let me go ahead down south. Let me go ahead down south. So, baby, that's what I did. I gave up my place. I gave up my place blindly. I took a leap of faith, a complete leap of faith. Gave up my place. I put some things into a storage unit, packed up my children. Bam, we went on down south, only to be kicked out. I want to say about 4 weeks later. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened? You're like, look here, what happened in those 4 weeks? Everything sounds pretty good, right? So when I got to my sister's house, to my surprise, they had took in some other relatives too. Now the house was pretty big, and the rooms were pretty spacey and all that good stuff. But so here we have three families under one roof. My sister had recently given birth to a child, and she was pretty irritable after the fact. When she apologized for how things went down, she said that she had been experiencing baby blues. Like, it was just, oh my God. Like, when I think about this time in my life, it was just so chaotic. Like, I'm like, good Lord. Yeah, we got there. It was, I don't know, it was just a lot of tension, like right off the rip. Like, and those are signs. And those are signs. It was like, the energy just transformed once we were just in the house. She was very particular about things around the house. And I had four kids at that time. So we were there, and she would come. She would like, someone didn't clean this butter knife. It would be like really nitpicky things like that. And a few times she said, oh, the refrigerator door wasn't closed all the way, or she had like a year's worth of breast milk in the freezer, not to be TMI, which I actually really admire about her. Like, I've never been able to kick ass with breastfeeding like that, but moving right along. Um, she was said the freezer, because she had one of those freezers on the bottom that opened like a drawer. She was like, it wasn't closed completely. I don't want the children touching the refrigerator doors anymore. I don't want them making their own foods anymore. It was just like so many things, and it was like every day it was an uphill battle about something that the kids were doing. And it, like I said, it could be something as small as they made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they put this butter knife in the sink, and it would cause like this big scene. Yeah. So it was just all these frictions, and I'm like, damn, I went from, never ever bumping heads with my sister in my life to now, every day there's just all of this stuff going on. And it just started resulting in a lot of tensions building up and frictions. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And like yeah, yeah, that's basically what was going on. And one day, while I was upstairs in the room with my children, I could hear like her and her husband down in the living room, like literally holding hands and praying, there's going to be a shift. And that, I was like, what the fuck? Woo! And that's when things really took a turn to the left. Um, I had gone grocery shopping the next day, and I filled up the house with like a bunch of food and stuff. And just that, I told you that intentionally. That's going to come in handy in a second. And yet again, it was just more complaining about the kids doing this, the kids doing that. And I think she was recording me at the time. She was like, what's wrong? Are you gonna have an argument with me? Are you gonna put your hands on me? Like, I was like, what the hell? I said, I would never put my hands on you. Like, I literally, it was just, oh my God. It was crazy, you guys. I think she was recording me at this time. And unfortunately, that was just, it was a very weird time. It was a very weird time. That was like, we had an argument, and I called her. I was like, you're acting like a bitch. I did. I finally said that to her. And The very next day, she went down to her local county and filed a restraining order on me because I told her that. But on the restraining order, she had said that I was yelling at her children and made her children afraid, that I was running through the house, banging on the doors, like traumatizing her family and making them feel unsafe. Like she literally plagiarized, like she literally made up a bunch of things about me to get me to be out of her home. Yep, that's what she did. Um, and how did I find out? I mean, the kids had went out to make a run, and when I came back, I could not get inside of the house. And it was a very hot day. It was during the summertime down south. It was a very hot day. And after a couple of minutes, I knew like something was just up. So I called the police. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I know that someone's here and all of my things are here and I can't get in the house. And they were like, well, let me just, they went up, they knocked on the door. Of course, someone answered the door. My sister, when she did, she had like this stone look in her eyes. And it was a look that I'd never seen before, that glare in her eyes. It was very, very empty. But nonetheless, the officer came back to me and he was like, well, your sister went and filed a restraining order against you. And unfortunately, that means that you can only be in a certain distance of her until we settle this out in court. And I was like, well, can I get my things at least from out of here? And he was like, well, you could do this on Saturday. Like, not even then, not even on that moment. This was like, days later, like 3 or 4 days later. He was like, well, on Saturday, you can come in here and get your things, and you'll be given a certain amount of minutes to get your stuff and like that. I'm like, okay, well, I did just put a bunch of groceries in here, and I haven't even started my new job yet. I'm going to need some of that stuff back. And she said, no, all of those groceries are mine. I put all this stuff in here. Yeah. So she kicked me out. She kept all the groceries. And I was asked to fuck out at that point. I was like, wow, like, what the fuck? Like, in my mind, I'm like, what? Was this the plan the whole time? And, in hindsight, when I think about it, through some of our frictions, and just some of our conversations of me being down there, I told her, I was like, well, I'm not going to move exactly close to you. And I said that for a few reasons. That once I got down there and I had did my research of the area, I was really more concerned with the best schools districts, and those weren't exactly where she was. And then on top of that, due to us not getting along, I was like, I just want to put a little distance. Like, I'll still give this state a try, but it might look a little bit different now because she was just acting so weird. Me being close to her, I didn't really look at her as a support system. Like the 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 conflicts had gotten so bad before she went to the court people that she had told me, well, you could stay, but you could sleep in the garage. That's where her dog slept. Or she was like, well, you can go, but your kids can stay. Like, those were some of the arguments, the things that she was saying to me, like within a few days of her um, going to the place and filing the bogus ass report, which was really messed up because I work white collar positions and, they do background checks. And with something like that, if they would have, which I had plenty of evidence to go against it, of her like texting me, I love having you here. And, like within days of her going and making a report saying I was torturing her. I can't wait for this. Da, 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 da. Like, I had text messages of this stuff. So it was legit just to get me to leave. And I believe it was ultimately once she found out I was not going to live close to her, it was like, well, I'm not going to help you. Like, the reason why she had brought me down there was really to self-serve her. It really wasn't about my situation. She had blanketed it and covered it and wanting to help me when it was probably she was lonely and wanted family near her. So somewhat of a supply, if you will. And once she realized, well, she's not going to live up the street for me, she's not even going to be too close to me, then what am I helping you for? It was like it turned into a shift of sabotaging whatever I had going, to help me get grounded down there by any means necessary at that point. Like it was very cold. Um, it it put me and my kids in a little bit of a pickle because I didn't have a lot financially in that moment, and I certainly didn't have enough money to go back up north, you know, just yet, which is what I needed to do at that point. So I had a minivan at the time, thank God. And this is what me and my kids did that first night. With the little bit of money that I had left, I went to a Dollar Tree, you guys, and I got some dry snacks and some drinks and shit that we could just, eat right in a minivan. And my kids slept in one night with me in a minivan. Yep, they had experienced that. So, you know, that was traumatic. I never want my children to experience that ever again. I wanted to be somewhere safe, so we went to like a 24-hour McDonald's, and I parked there, I gave them their snacks, and we slept in the minivan that night. um, Fortunately, I had child support payments coming through, and that gave me enough money to drive back up north, you know and that led to a whole nother situation, you know, to where my kids had somewhere to stay, um, as I took them to their father, which was a whole nother, oh, that was a whole nother situation there that I'm not going to get into. We'll tell this story in bits. We'll keep just to this, scenario right here, which I'm using to make this point. But yeah, I was able to take them with their father, and then myself, I was homeless, and I did often what other homeless people did. I already had gym memberships. I used it to shower, slept in my car. I did that for about a week or so. The funny thing is, when I first drove back up there, there was like this low budget hotel, and I was like $4 or $5 short of being able to stay in this hotel. And I told the person, I'm like, look, I'm in a situation right now. And they were like, so cold. Well, it costs this much. I'm like, what the? Ooh, what's wrong with people, right? But the crazy thing is, if I had been the other person on the other line of that, I would have gave that person the $5. That's just me. If I had it, maybe they didn't have it. I doubt it. I know they probably had that. You know what I mean? I would have like, you know what, I'll put the $5 in, when I see somebody in situations like that. But you're talking to someone, Coach Lakia, like I randomly pay for people's groceries at supermarkets. People, I randomly do stuff like this now. After my experience with homelessness, and even before that, I was a generous person anyway, but now I just do extra stuff. Like if I'm in line and someone in front of me is struggling to pay their bill, or they start putting stuff back, I'm the person I would say, no, we're not putting that back. I'll cover your bill. Some people feel comfortable with that, but some don't. But 100% of the time, I've been able to pass it on and pay blessings towards other people. And I don't want to digress, but just to give you an example, of some people, the way that they move and how others don't. So when I didn't have that $4, the person didn't extend the room to me. So I ended up sleeping in my car until a couple of friends that knew that I was back in town. Um, they were like, "Don't do this. Don't." At that point, I was a little traumatized about accepting help from people because I'm like, if my own sister can do this to me, with twins in my belly and 4 children, and like knowing what I just went through, it made me very introverted. I became very introverted and very isolated off from others at that point. But I did couch surf with 2 friends. One was like my childhood best friend, was very kind to me, and and no matter how long I had gone without speaking with her, when we talked, it was just like yesterday. So I went over her house for like a weekend or a couple of days. It was nice to take a shower somewhere more familiar and just rest in a more peaceful manner. Because the instability of bouncing around like that is definitely not fun. And then one of my friends from high school, I stayed with her for maybe, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. But by that point, things had shifted for me, because God is God. And some money that had been owed to me through unemployment that had been stalled for some reason. So thousands of dollars came into my account, and it was really helpful. That job that I was trying to close the dots with, that fell through the cracks in the midst of me running back and forth with my kids, like taking them back up north, trying to wrap that up. They wanted to see me in person. I was up north. It just, that fell through the cracks. But another job actually did line up for me in Georgia, actually very quickly after that. So, everything worked out. But honestly, I learned a huge lesson about not overstaying my welcome, because when my sister was having these talks with me, and like, well, you could go and your kids could stay. Da, 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 da. When people start talking to you like that, like, you need to just fucking leave. In my mind, I felt a few ways about it. I was like, well, it's not the best timing for me. If I could just stay here for one more month, like, that's what I would tell them. I just need one more month and things would be cool, because I knew this money was going to come through for me. I was going to get this other job, and minimally I would be able to pay for a hotel or something. So I had just needed that little bit more time. But when you are in situations where you like overstay your welcome, the best thing to do is really to just leave, whether it's fair or not. Because a lot of times it's like, well, this isn't fair. This wasn't the term. I didn't deserve this. Da 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 da. But God's got you covered. God's got you covered. And beyond a situation like this, even in relationships, overstaying your welcome. Just think about it. It gets 10 times worse, right? Then 100 times worse, then 1,000 times worse. Like, I had to go all the way back down south at a certain time for this court hearing, and she didn't even show up to it, because her mission was already accomplished by getting me out of the house, A, but B, because it was completely bogus anyway. And I was like all concerned about it. I'm like, what if the judge doesn't believe me? And like, I really was like preparing for this case, like, because this was my name. I didn't want anything, going on my background. Like, it was just really fucked up at the end of the day. Like, it is to this day. I did not speak to my sister for a very long time. I didn't think I would ever really fuck with her or talk with her again, honestly, after this. It took a while. It took a while. I had blocked her. I thought I had blocked her on everything that I could. After the fact, I realized she had been emailing me when she couldn't call me or get me on social media and stuff like that. And of course, she was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have did this. Da, 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 da. And it took a while. It took a while, you guys. I don't even know what moved me to speak with her again. I guess grace. I didn't forget anything, but I was like, well, I'll meet her out in a public place. I believe what moved me were my nieces and nephews. Yeah. The kids. Yeah. It was just beyond her. I'm like, well, if I don't speak with her, I won't have a connection with my niece and nephews anymore, you know? So I think that is what really bent me to, have some grace on the situation. And we started out just meeting in public places. I'm like, well, I was, back on my feet and all that good stuff, doing well in life. Um, and in between her not speaking with me, she had had a baby. So she had gotten pregnant right after I left. So I was pregnant with twins, and she was pregnant with my niece. And, by the way, things went well with the twins. They were both born full term through a C-section. and very healthy, over 5 pounds each. And they're healthy and well today, of course. And she had to have a C-section as well, but hers pregnancy was very troubled, and her C-section got infected, and they had to like bust the stitches like 10 times. It just didn't go as smoothly as mine, for sure, you know. But either way, I started out meeting her in public places at first. Like I'd like, I have a family pass to the aquarium back then before they started making it. Each family member had their own card. They had a family card, and it would tell how many people can go on, yada yada yada. So I meet her like at the zoo because I had family passes to that, because I'm a fun mother. I get out with my kids. So we were doing stuff like that. And eventually I let her back into my house and this and that. But here's the interesting thing about me and her relationship. To this day, I don't have her home address. She moved from that house that she was in, and she refused to give me her address. And her son, who's older, I know she had to talk, do not tell them where we live. I do feel for some reason she believes that I'm going to take revenge on her one day. And I'm not, you know. It's unfortunate that she has to feel that way, but I haven't been able to send like Christmas gifts or birthday gifts to my nieces and nephews, or just because gifts. They'll ask for something if their parents weren't going to get it, like I'll get it for them. But I have no way of getting it to them. She actually wanted me to fly my son down to see her alone without knowing her address. I said, let's put the shoe on the other foot. And I said, would you fly your 12-year-old son up here to spend time with me if I did not want to give you a physical address to where your child will actually be while they're with me, aunt or not? No, I wouldn't do that. Then why are you asking me to do that with my son? It kind of opened up another can of worms. And then we haven't even spoken since this conversation last year. But the good news is, our children are getting older and they can keep in touch with each other despite our difficulties. Um, but it's a shame, people stab you in the back and then they feel like they got to look over their shoulders for the rest of their life. But guess what? We may have came from the same mother, but we're not the same, baby. I don't move that way. I'm not going to strike you. I'm over you. And I said, I forgave you and, spoke to you again. That was that for me. You know, I haven't forgotten it. I don't trust you with all my heart. Hell no. But I don't hate you. I still have love for you, and I damn sure love my niece and nephews. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was part of my experience of homelessness. Like that was the beginning of it, and that little season of my life. But and to go from that to where I'm at right now, you guys, trust me, there's been a dramatic ass turnaround, and God is wonderful. I'm going to say that right now. He's great. But in that time of my life, I definitely had to learn a lot of hard lessons. It was, I want to say, those 2 years of my life um, were, they built me, they helped refine me into now. And it's when I made this channel as well. A lot came out of that time of my life. A lot of beautiful things did. So, I don't judge all homeless people, after that experience. I understand, things can happen. But what would I have done differently? Would I have still taken my sister up on her offer? Yes. But I would have kept my place a little bit, at least a little bit longer. I would have gave it a 6-month grace. Like, you know what? She's not charging me rent. I'll just keep my place and make sure everything is going to go smoothly. If not, I'll have a safe place to fall. I would have still kept my ties up here while exploring, those opportunities down south, just as a safety net. Because when you put your complete livelihood, a roof over your head, in somebody else's hand, 100% pretty much, you've given them a lot of power. When you have 4 children that are looking up to you and relying on you for stability in their life. So, sister or not, I thought I mean, I'm like, well, I'm not giving this to a stranger, but family, is a very abstract thing to a person like me, okay? And I've learned that, just because someone is blood, it certainly doesn't make them family. And honestly, uh, that is often the way that dark energy can try to work on you the most is through family members, okay? Yeah, that's a fact. But don't overstay your welcome, even if it's not fair. And it's crazy. Like, I think about this situation. Like, even when I went back to get my stuff from that house, like, my Bible had been stolen. Like, who steals somebody's fucking Bible? Yo, my Bible had gotten stolen from me. Like, it was like, it's just, that's messed up. That's messed up. And I think it also goes to show how trauma can affect different people. Like, we both lost our mother at 7, but she was 1, so she has no memories. And then she had to grow up with our stepfather, who was her biological father, and he wasn't the most healthy person. I felt like I served a jail sentence in my childhood, and this is a whole nother story that should just be another story time, honestly. But and she had to experience what she experienced as well, and it turned her into what it turned her into, and it turned me into what it turned me into. But I tell you one thing, I would never do that to my family member. I just would never do that. I mean, that's pretty ruthless and cold. Pretty ruthless and cold. Um, but yeah, you don't want to overstay your welcome. You're just inviting uh, a level of conflict. Like, if you think you have a conflict now, it's just going to escalate. I could think of situations of overstaying my welcome in relationships, and then because I didn't cut it off completely, what did I make myself susceptible to eventually? You know, I think I was talking about this yesterday in the live chat, when I mentioned about naive or gullible people needing to get punched in the head with the truth. Like, and I'm like, don't be that person. So when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking from a lot of different angles. I'm talking from a person who has probably been there and done that, first of all. Okay. And then, of course, someone that has talked to a lot of other people who have been there and done that. Okay. And then someone who just purely studies these things, because I'm a psychology junkie myself. But yeah, when I say don't be that person, it's because I've been that damn person and I know how that hurts. I know the hard lessons that come when you don't know any better, or when you don't take heed properly. This my sister had been throwing all types of signs, but I didn't have a plan B, C, D. I didn't have other plans lined up. Like, what if? Like, I did not use I did, I made that video again the other day, and I said gullible or naive people, they use their mental capacity to read a situation. They're idealizing it. I idealized going down there with her, and I only seen it in a positive light. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. And that shit turned into a nightmare. But God, He makes lemonade out of lemons. That's what He does. Because during that whole season of my life, He took all of them experiences and morphed it into what I am today. So all is not lost. But you're going to get a human experience there. You're going to feel some pain. You're going to be put in a sink or swim type of situation, and that's what I was put in. But I'll tell you one thing, you guys, and this makes me so happy. Like, through this whole situation, like, people would have lost their kids, all types of shit. God kept me and my children together. I never lost them. I had everything that I needed for my kids. Like, the grace, I could literally almost cry right now. The amount of care that came from strangers, even strangers. I was expecting it from my sister, but strangers, people that didn't know me, like there's a lot of people out here with big hearts. I know, like the news and, they like to just only report murders and, robberies and just all the mainly negative aspects of life, and then they might showcase something positive for 2 fucking minutes. But there's a lot of good people out there. There are, but it damn sure doesn't mean that you should know about the ones that aren't. Be able to read energy and not overstay your welcome. And when I talk about overstaying your welcome, this is in all areas. I was just talking about it under somebody else's roof, okay? But in these personal relationships, when you're out in public too, like if I'm out and if I go to a public event and I see shit starting to hit the fan, I don't need people to go blowing at fists before I leave. Like, look, it's starting to get hot in here. I don't like the way this feels. I'm out of there. I'm out of there. I'm more of a loner anyway, but I don't live my life in fear. And but I only tend to go into certain atmospheres. I don't like you ain't gonna find me in no hole of a wall type places because I don't want no hole in the wall type people around me. And I'm not saying that to say that good people don't go to, you know, like lesser of places per se. Like doesn't mean that good people don't go there, but to me, the probability is too high. And if I do have to go into areas that may be a little bit iffy, if I have to go into the quote unquote hood or something like that for some reason, which I really don't, but if I need to do it for some reason, like my hairstylist, the shop is right here or whatever, and I go here for that, whatever, I'm in and I'm fucking out. You know, I'm in and I'm out. I try to I'm very careful about where I place myself at this point in my life. I'm a lot more sensitive to that, as I've gotten older and as a black person. He really is. He really is, you all. And that was a rough situation. And honestly, it affected my children. It did. It did, especially my daughter, my oldest daughter. Like if she had some things to work through after that situation. She did not trust family members for a very long time, and she still will not deal with family members only to a certain way. Um, and it gave her a social anxiety. It really traumatized her. Like, and the crazy thing about it is the kids, they were old enough to know. Cause I think my oldest son was like 16. My daughter was like 15. And then I had, Isaiah might have been like, I don't know, 12. And my Nathan he was pretty young. He was a little baby, like 8 or something like that. But either way, they were all old enough to know what the fuck was going on. Like I didn't have to explain it to them. Like they knew, the unfairness. Like it was off the chain. Her excuse for that behavior, she said, I'm sorry, I had the baby blues and I wasn't in my right mind. That was her excuse for that. But yeah, I tried to explain this I tried to explain this story like as best as I could, in a way that is as fair as possible. It just is what it is. But you don't want to overstay your welcome with people. You just don't on any level. Like get out of resistance, accept reality, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, even if it puts you in a situation you prefer not. Like just cut your losses. And I made a motivational playlist, and I believe that's the first video on there. Motivational playlist for days where you might be, if you're battling with depression or your emotions, can go high and low when you're healing your inner childhood and you're dealing with trauma and you're trying to get to a better place. But yeah, cutting your losses, or else it's going to lead to a deeper loss. You know, things can take a turn very quickly. Because if an energy is just desperate to have a certain outcome, or if it's desperate to do damage on your life, if they could do a certain amount of damage in that amount of time, by overstaying your welcome, is just giving them more time to do more shit to you, and more impactful shit on top of that, is what I've come to learn. There have been times when I believe God told me to just cut somebody off 100%, but because I kept up one foot in, some further shit happened, and it was even worse than the other stuff that had already occurred. So, this is overstaying your welcome, is continuing to stay in cycles of abuse, with a narcissistic person. That's another example of that. That's another example. So, take it from me, baby. Like, there's a lot you could take out of that story time. Have a plan, have a plan B, have a plan C. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And when you start picking up the signs, like, she didn't, before she even literally told me to leave, before she literally told me that, there were signs. All that conflict is a sign, like, this ain't gonna work out. This ain't gonna work out. And it's sad, that a lot of times family can't stick together and work together. We could have so much more as a unit, in certain instances. But, and there's confirmation, but God knows, that's the thing. He's with you, and you're never walking alone. Just like that picture of the sand and his footprints in the sand type picture. He was carrying me, man. He was absolutely carrying me. But God bless. And don't feel bad about it. Like, I'm not embarrassed about experiencing homelessness. It's a rite of fucking passage as far as I'm concerned. And I've studied so many successful people, and almost all of them have been homeless at some point. And extreme homelessness, like, Tyler Perry, Steve Harvey, and I'm sleeping in their cars for years. Like, I wasn't on that level with it. I wasn't on that level with it. Thank God for that. But trust me, I was homeless. I was literally homeless for, I want to say, a good year and some change, where I was paying for hotels and stuff, trying to figure out, where I was going to plant myself. And it was just due to a bunch of reasons. Like, once I went back down south after I took the kids up north, it was in the summertime, and I'm like, okay, well, I got a few months to try to start this new job and see where I can get in, where I can fit in down here, down south. I was in Georgia, by the way. um, yeah, so I got into a little cheap hotel situation because it was just me at that point, me and the twins in my belly. And I started working my new job. I was very thankful for that. And I could not get in where I wanted to get in. Like, the housing market was so competitive. And before I knew it, it was back to school time for up north, which had already started down south, because they start ahead of us, they get out ahead of us. But I wasn't too concerned with that. I was just going off of up north. So I bought them down, and I upgraded the hotel to something that felt like an apartment. It was a little expensive, but I was making enough money to afford it. So while I was in that situation, I was still trying to get into find a nice house to rent, and it just was not fault. The doors were not opening. And before I knew it, I was 7 months pregnant with the twins. And I had to make some serious decisions at that point, because I had money saved to move into the place, but I didn't have money to, like, sustain myself and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm down here. I don't have much of a support system. I still haven't found a place. And twins, when you're pregnant with twins, they can come early. Anything could go into the left field, or. And even though I was praying for full term, a lot of people are happy to make it to 7 months carrying twins. To them, that's full term, But, with me being tall, I have a tall stature, for any of you who never really see me physically. So it made me pretty equipped to carry two babies. I have a long torso. But nonetheless, I was like, I'm going to have to go back up. And I had really loved the job that I had, but I couldn't work it remote. And I couldn't transfer. And I was like, damn, like, I had that conversation with God. I was like, I really like this job, but I couldn't find a place, and I'm gonna have to give it up. I felt so sad about it. but I had to talk with my manager and I told her my situation, and whew, and I had to get out of resistance with that. I didn't, at this point, I had learned the memo. And I was like, well, I don't like it, but this is just my situation right now. So I gave up the job. I tied up my loose ends. When my last paycheck came, I booked some flights on Spirit Airline, baby. I was trying to get a good deal. Look, I needed to save my pennies, you guys. Um, and I booked a flight for me and the kids to go back up north. So I had all these loose ends to tie up because I had a storage up north, but I had a storage down south too. Like I was preparing for my place. And I had to get that stuff. I was trying to tie up loose ends. And what happened was I had missed my morning flight. I didn't have enough time because, I'm 7 months pregnant with twins. I got these kids. I'm trying to tie up all my loose ends of me being down in Georgia for a good 7 months. So I called Spirit Airline and they were like, okay, we can bump you up to this flight tonight. And but you're not going to arrive into Philly until midnight because I was coming back up north. I was like, oh my goodness, that's so late because I had it planned out to where originally I was going to take like a 10 a.m. flight. I would get there. There's a storage unit by Philly Airport. I was like, okay, I can just take all my stuff, put it in the storage, and then I was going to go with some family members into New Jersey. But let me tell you, baby, what happened. I took the late flight. Well, before I took it, I called my family member and I let them know, hey, um, I'm going to be coming a lot later now. I was going to come around 1 p.m., but now it's not going to be until midnight. The family member is like, well, I got to work in the morning. You guys, I was like, are you serious? But trust me, I had already had the memo before this, and I'm like, I'm not going through this again. First of all, this family member is one of my mom's sisters. Yes. And I never asked this family member for nothing before, and I was clearly in a crisis. And they were like, well, you could come stay here until you have the baby because it's like you're not landing another job. You already been there, done that. That cycle is closed. This was before the work from home stuff, so I didn't have that either. Maybe I could get some unemployment, but I'm the one that walked away from that job, and we talking about Georgia, so this is a red state. They probably gonna fight me on that. So I'm like, look, nope. I just needed some help at this point. So because the family member wasn't willing to go out of the way to still help me, because I don't think the train was not going to be running at this time. And I was hoping that they would still come pick me up from the airport, and they just weren't. And I said, you know what? I told my kids, I said, look, we're not going to go into another situation like that again. After I paid for the tickets and stuff, I had money to pay for a hotel. So I had to take like 3 taxis because I had like checked luggage and I took what I could. I took as much stuff as I could. And it was cold as hell because the twins were born in January. So yeah, this is like November. It was already cold. It was one of the cold winter had already like kind of like came in. But either way, we took the taxis to the hotel instead. And I didn't want to go to New Jersey anyway because I didn't want to be for other reasons. For other reasons, I really had it wasn't my preference. So I was like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but God, man, we're just going to have to figure this shit out. So the next day, I woke up and I had like the worst panic attack of my life. Yeah. And and this is what made me back then when I eventually started the channel. I think about maybe 5 months later, I had made videos to help people with panic attacks and anxiety attack. If you have those, God bless you. Been there and done that. But I definitely addressed that here on the channel. I haven't addressed it lately. Maybe I'll do like a 2023 version of that. But yeah. I woke up to the worst panic attack that I had yet. And that panic attack lasted for like 3 hours. And I know it was the stress of the situation, you know, the uncertainty of like, what's my next move? Where are we going to stay? But let me tell you how God worked. I got up that morning. I left the kids there, and I went down to a county assistance welfare office. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I went up to the lady. I was like, I don't know where me and my kids are going to sleep tonight. I told her that, and she just looked at me and she asked me one question. She was like, "Did someone put their hands on you?" And I didn't say anything to her. She was like, hold on a minute." She left her desk. God was just working through her. Had I experienced domestic violence in my life before? Yes, I certainly did. But when she asked me that, my mind kind of wandered back to that time of my life. I didn't say a word to her though. She came back and she was like, "I have somewhere for you to go." And she put me and my kids in this safe house in a very, very prestigious part of the state. It was a really nice area, to say the least. And from there, God bridged my gaps until after I had the twins. The safe house, and this is the interesting thing about that whole thing. I felt like my life had come a little bit full circle because the last time I seen my mother, I was at a safe house. My mother passed away when she was 22, fleeing from domestic violence. She had took me and my siblings to a safe house. And I'm like, now I'm at a safe house with my children. Like I felt like, whoa, I really did. But nonetheless, safe houses are, a temporary place that you're usually there for 30 days or less. And they're there to help you connect you with resources to help you in a longer term if you have a situation, which I did, at that point. It wasn't about my ability to necessarily survive. I had 2 college degrees. I could clearly work in all these things, but I was pregnant with the twins by now, approaching 8 months. And whether I wanted to work or not, you get that far, you just got to take several seats. You're going to have the baby. You're going to have to heal from the C-section, and then you can resume life at that point. And it was nothing I could do about it. And you know what? God gave me that moment because I until then my life has just always been go 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 because I had divorced my ex-husband back in 2011 due to domestic violence, and he literally tried to kill me. But that's a whole nother story as well, you guys. But I never had a moment to just sit still. And during those times, during the end of my pregnancy with the twins, that's when I wrote my books and stuff. I'm serious. I had like this creative energy just slapped me in the face, and I was up all night and I wasn't even tired during the day. Like he was just working through me. So the 4 books that I wrote in my life, it was during this time, period. Yeah. So he gave me a time to do that. Like they put me in, it is basically a shelter, not like, something that you might envision, like some dirty place. No, it was actually very nice. It was safe. And it was what I needed to get through that period. And the end of my pregnancy with the twins, I was in a shelter, and I brought them home to a shelter. I gave birth alone with my twins. And that was just interesting. Like the people in the hospital, they were like, "You don't have any friends or family that are going to come here with you when you have these twins?" And I was like, "It's just me." And I could see like the look in like the staff eyes. They were like, "How does this woman end up here by herself?" Like it was weird to them for sure. But it was my preference. I had the C-section, and then some of my close friends, I did let them know, I did have the babies now, and the same friends that helped me, the same ones, they were right there, and I love them to death for that. But I've digressed a little bit on this story time but I wanted to give a little bit more of a clip of the homeless shelter. But so many people helped me during that time. And I helped myself too. I was not a victim, but I was able to really start my healing progress or process. I got into like the shelter hooked me up with like free um, counseling and different things like that to talk about, subject matters around the twins and the relationship with their father, and because that was a doozy, a really, really doozy. So, yeah, I did a lot during that time, and so many strangers. The social worker, God bless her, she passed away after the twins were born. I made sure she met them because she was constantly bringing me gifts and clothes. Like she was just like an angel. She was such an angel. I was devastated. I was completely devastated when I found out she passed away like a year later. But I'm like, God kept her long enough to be such. I can't imagine like the love that she poured into me, that she did that for so many other people. But I was so thankful that he had kept her alive for me. Like, I'm not saying he only kept her alive for me, but she was on earth long enough to help me. Like, wow, I was thankful for that. Like, she had, and good stuff. She was bringing me, because it was like donations that would come in, and it was like all this stuff from, I call Target and Target. Like she bought me all these newborn baby stuff. The twins were decked out. Like I was in a shelter, you wouldn't even know it. They were absolutely decked out. Like we had diapers for 4 months, wipes, clothes, like, and anything else I needed. I drove Uber, you guys. I drove Uber. I had a belly bump out to there, and I was driving Uber to pay my cell phone bill, to get haircuts for my sons, to, get things for the babies, for my twins. I would go, I knew this really good consignment shop in the Goodwill. And I think like on Tuesdays, all baby items were $1. I would go in there and rack up, you guys. Like the twins had so much clothes. And if any of you follow me on social media on my personal account, you guys see how they be staying decked out. Like they were just born that way. Like they were born very blessed and abundant. I also feel spiritually that my mother, she was in on this. And let me tell you how God works. My mother was born on November 17th. So these are the numbers 117. The twins were born on January 17th, 117. And not only that, they were born on my mother's funeral day. My mother passed away January 13th, 113. But her funeral was 117. It's like a resurrection. Like sometimes I feel like she reincarnated into one of them because one of them reminds me of my mother so bad. And I'm like, am I raised? Did she come back to me this way? Like, I really wonder about that because of the sheer coincidence of these patterns that I'm seeing. And my mother loved crabs and oxtails. My daughter loves crabs and oxtails. My mother is very feisty. My daughter is very feisty. Like, and sometimes I can't even look in her eyes too long because I just see that soul in there. I'm like, oh my God, I think, you know? And that's why a lot of spiritual people sometimes are like, be kind to your children. You may actually be one of your ancestors. But yeah, God is good. The twins, they're so loving and caring to me. Like when I first found out, I'm like, what am I gonna do with two girls? Like I wasn't even trying to be pregnant. And they're just so sweet. And the older they get, like they're so protective over me and they're just so loving. They're like my BFFs. They really are. And everything really worked out, you guys. And now I'm just completely blessed. Like I make the most money than I have in my life. And this isn't just all about money, but more so about stability and just feeling whole as a person. And definitely the emotional maturity is is definitely a lot ages away from where it used to be. Now, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, and I never would claim to be. And we're only using a fraction of our brains, you know? But man, it's night and day, my progression, and I'm proud of myself. You know, I don't give myself enough credit. You know, a lot of people would have crumbled under that type of situation, and they may not even have been where I am right now. So I live to tell, and I'm living well to tell on top of that. So I'm just very thankful and grateful. And I don't regret any of it. You know, all these experiences, you know, they were necessary to get me to here. They were necessary in my journey, you know? And that's how I want you guys to look at it for yourselves. But do not, I repeat, do not overstay your welcome. Be okay with just when you see stuff going into the left field, whatever the situation is, gracefully exit left stage, and that's okay. Shoot, as a matter of fact, it's going into the left, you go to the right. Go on, part ways with that because you don't want it. You don't want what happens when you go against resistance. And you know, God is calling you to remove yourself from something, and you're not listening because you're not ready, or it's not fair, or somebody owes you this or that, or trying to balance out a situation, and you end up being more imbalanced because of it, right? And it's like, how were you supposed to balance that situation out? You were supposed to balance it out by getting out of it. You removing yourself from the situation is what actually is bringing balance to your life. Now, see all those doors that started opening for me, you know, even if you got, sometimes we got to get forced. You know, my sister forced it. She forced it. But you know, as we spoke about earlier, not having any other plan. There wasn't a plan B. It was blindly. You know, I put all my faith and trust in my sister. I thought I should have been able to, and we didn't have a type of rapport that would make me feel otherwise. But that's not exactly how it went down. You know, I still got love for her though. I do. And I actually forgive her. So if you're listening to this, hopefully, you know, you're not mad at me, but it is what it is. But I got love, and there's no retaliation. I don't move like that, you know. But a lot of times people project their behaviors onto you. So if they know how they move, they're going to feel somebody else could do it too. And it's possible, yes, somebody else can do it. But guess what? I don't want to do it because that's not natural to me. That's natural to you, baby. But with that being said, you guys are pretty quiet on there. Yeah, this was a story. Mama has lived. You guys will learn that about me. I have lived and I'm still living, you know. But I call this phase of my life um I don't know what I would call this phase, but it's definitely I think after everything that I've gone through, I won't say smooth sailings because, you know, life is still life and it's not a straight line for anybody. You know what I'm saying? I have things that I have to be strong about in my waking life, and everyone has crosses to bear still. You know, things that, um, you know, that I still have to work on in my emotional maturity and in other areas of my life. Adina says, I'm going through pregnancy and homelessness right now. Aw. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm so glad that you found this live chat, and I don't know how long you've been here, but don't be afraid to tap into your community resources. There are so many for pregnant women. There are so many. Do not think that you're by yourself. That's confirmation right there. When you hear my phone beep like that out of nowhere, that's confirmation. There's so many resources, and I found that out. I didn't even know how many resources, but it's, you know, getting connected. And it's going to be, God's going to work through strangers at this time, but you can be completely covered and have what you need, you know, just don't give up. And I've spent, you know, it's an emotional situation. There have been times where I cried in the middle of the night privately, you know, that's where I gotta one of my books called Silent Tears, because I'm a pretty private person, honestly. There's a lot of people, you guys are getting a story right now that a lot of people in my personal life don't even know about. Isn't that funny? It's like, look here, you're sharing this with us. You guys are like family to me anyway, right? I'm sharing this with you guys. It's people that have known me since elementary school don't know about this. But it's cool. It's not for everybody. This is the type of community that can benefit from this. But um Adina definitely, and anybody else, there are so many, there's a lot of help. There's a lot of help for pregnant women, for sure. There's a lot of help. Laura Park says, bless you. I can identify with your situation back then. Same here, similar single mom story. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God bless you too, Laura. Uh-huh. Yep. You could try to do that if you need. If you need. And that was something actually that they had told me to do once I was in the shelter. It was a wait list for it, but to try to get the voucher, but they told me to sign up for it. I believe I did. But by the time, you guys, by the time that I had the twins and I was back out working and stuff, I didn't even qualify for those type of things anymore. You know, I didn't qualify for it anymore. But while I was pregnant, I needed to help to get through that part of my pregnancy. But man, but yeah, it was certainly like anything at your disposal. KK Renee says, I've been through something similar. God bless me now. He does. He does. And he'll bless you right in front of your enemy. Hmm. And it's not for you to be boastful either. Because um, what would I say? I'm going to say I'm humble, but I know who I am too. Like I'm not going to downplay myself. I think people say, stay humble, downplay yourself per se. No, it's okay to say who you are per se. But I'm not like a boastful, bragging type of person. Like, most people are trying to figure out what is she really even doing? How is she making her ends like this? Like, that's how private I am. I'm not a boastful person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 The first going to my local county assistance office was the best thing I ever did. And it just flowed for me that way. But there's also, we had like a community, they connected me with a greater um, nonprofit organization that was there to help people in the community for all types of reasons. But certainly they were going to help this mom. Right. Laura's like WIC, EBT, Medicaid. Yep. Deal with where you are now, then strive forward. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And I did. During that time, I took advantage of Medicaid, EBT, and WIC. Yep. I definitely did. Yep. Definitely. So, and then, God bless you for sure, because during the time when you're pregnant, a pregnant woman is very vulnerable because it gets to a point where you really should not be working. And then it gets to a point where you just cannot work, and you deserve to have, the support, you know? And if it doesn't come by traditional manner, if the guy is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, or shoot, some people conceive out of rape and all types of things. I'm not oblivious to that. Trust me, of all people, I'm not oblivious to those type of situations. And then, and that's a whole nother thing. It really is. Awesome. Awesome. Lord saying she secured a union job later. Like, God, He's the father to the fatherless. That's a fact. That is a fact. Like, God proved myself. He proved Himself, is what I meant, to me over and over. Like, before I experienced homelessness, um, I know my relationship with God was not as tight as it was afterwards. Like, I had situations where I would pull, like during that time of homelessness, I sent my son And this was before the gas prices were too crazy, right? But they were still high enough. I would send him into the Wawa. That's like one of our little gas stations. With like $3 worth of quarters or something like that. My oldest son, and he'll come back out and be like, "Oh, the person in line put $10 on our pump." We weren't like panhandling or anything. But that's what I mean by working through strangers. And I never forgot stuff like that. And that's why, like earlier, where I was saying, like, I give back, like, I'll help people. Like, I do stuff like that. I've always been like that anyway, but it's even more so for me, especially if I see what I perceive to be like a single mother or something like that. If I see her struggling with something and I got it, I'm generous in that way. And KK Renee says it's crazy sometimes how most of your support came from strangers in times of major crisis. Uh-huh. It's a fact. It's been a fact for me. It has been a fact for me. Yep. And that's why, people make these memes on Facebook, and it's like sometimes the strongest person on a team could be somebody you met last month. It's not always about seniority, about who you knew for the longest. Shoot, sometimes that's a wolf in sheep clothing, you know, and they just hadn't had their moment to reveal themselves. But you know what? The funny thing is, God sees it. People count you out. They devalue you. They think you're not going to be this and that. And then in a blink of an eye, that's exactly who God promotes. That's exactly who God rises up. And then they're feeling some type of way, not because, oh, they made a bad judgment call, but they can't benefit off of you now because they already revealed themselves during your time of need, you know? And that's why some people be like, well, if you weren't with me when I was shooting in the court, but you want to come with me now that I'm drafted to the NBA. Laura says, strangers saved my life. If you have no family, go to state, then church. Yep. Yep. Sometimes churches too. And dig out of the hole you're in. Yep. Sometimes churches are there as well. That's true. And sometimes churches, ugh, mm, I've had, situations with those too, where I gave, but they would not give back to you, you know. So, yeah. But yeah, sometimes a church can be that resource too. Shu Shuvan K says, I can relate, but in different ways. Thank you for sharing. God bless you and your family. Thank you. Thank you, you guys. And, we're far removed from this experience, but I know I'll never forget it. And I seen, NYC is so expensive on top of that, Laura. Yeah, it is very expensive. But being in a major city like that, I know they have to have a lot of resources as well. Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, you guys, I have to get back to my day here off of YouTube, but I wanted to drop in and share this story time with you guys. Hopefully, it gives somebody else comfort to know, like, you can overcome pretty much anything, and God is still going to be with you even during those times. And don't feel less than either if you're homeless. Like, I'm telling you, I've legit studied so many successful people, and damn near all of them have been homeless at some period of their life for some reason. Whether it was a family member who kicked them out, or they went broke following their dream and they went through that rough patch, and then one thing led to another, and they was back up and they've been up. But you could get everything back and then some. And I'm definitely a witness to that. Shoot, I went from being on the WIC and the EBT and the Medicaid. Now, now I got a tax bill that's going to be due, and a hefty one. But that just means that you took yourself into another bracket, and that's all is what it is. So God bless you guys. let me put my email here in the chat, Coach Lakia. And I think they're gonna upload it in here anyway, Coach Lakia at gmail.com. You know, if you ever need some support or anything, you want to email me, you're welcome to do it. I have a website, lakiacrawford.com. If you want to link up with me, you can go through there as well. Lakia.crawford. I'm sorry, not dot. I'm thinking about emails right now. LakiaCrawford.com. www. All right. Get your mind right, Lakia. Refocus. But yeah, it was nice having this story time with you guys. I'll probably, I'll hop on here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. More content is going to be coming. If there's something that you would like for me to speak on or give my opinion or advice or, educationally, just let me know. And, just hang in there. This too shall pass. All right. This too shall pass. And stay close to God because He ain't never left you and He sees everything. All right. Continue to take care of yourself, you guys. And until next time, take care. All right.